Let's just dive right into this. We're looking at a really fascinating deep dive topic today.
Yeah, something that seems simple on the surface, right? Active listening.
Exactly. The art of active listening.
Yeah.
But it's deceptively powerful.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's one of those foundational skills, isn't it? And the material we've dug into, it really lays out why it's so much more than just, hearing sounds.
Absolutely. And our goal today, our mission for this deep dive, is basically to pull out the core insights, the really practical stuff.
Yeah, give you, the listener, a kind of shortcut to understanding this skill and, crucially, why it actually matters.
Because let's face it, we live in such a noisy world, everyone's trying to be heard.
Right. Everyone wants to get their point across, but finding someone who truly listens, that feels, well, it feels rare sometimes.
It really does. And this skill, active listening, it seems like the key to bridging that communication gap we all feel.
Totally. It's the bridge.
So let's start right there. Why? Why, in the middle of all this noise, is active listening so vital?
Well, the material we looked at really hammers this point home. It talks about that huge communication chasm.
Uh-huh.
Everyone's talking, but very few are really truly absorbing what's being said.
And that's where all the problems start.
Right.
Misunderstandings, frustration.
Missed opportunities, yeah.
Frustration.
Frustration builds. Active listening, the material says, is the intentional antidote to that.
Okay, an antidote. I like that. And it seems to pay off everywhere. Like relationships, for instance. Personal, professional.
Oh, huge impact there. Massive. When you genuinely listen, really listen, people feel valued, seen,
Yeah, I can see that.
and that builds trust. It deepens the connection. It fosters empathy. People are just more willing to open up, be authentic. It makes relationships, richer,
Yeah.
closer.
And what about at work? The material uses a strong word, cornerstone.
It absolutely is. Think about effective teams, strong leaders, good client relationships. They all hinge on active listening.
How so?
Well, a leader who really listens. They understand their team's challenges, their motivations on a much deeper level.
Right.
Or someone, say, in sales or client service, if they truly listen to what a client needs, not just what they say, they can offer a way better solution. It cuts down on mistakes, boosts collaboration. It's fundamental.
Okay, so beyond the people side, relationships and teams, the material also talks about understanding and learning.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, this is really interesting. It's not just about processing the words themselves. Active listening means you're picking up on the emotion, the context, the subtext.
The stuff between the lines?
Exactly. You grasp the full picture, and naturally that leads to better comprehension, better retention. So whether it's a lecture or complex instructions or even like a documentary, you just absorb and remember more effectively.
Which sounds like it links directly to dealing with conflict better. So many fights start because someone feels ignored.
Precisely. The material points this out clearly. When you actively listen in a conflict, you stop just planning your comeback.
Uh-huh. Guilty as charged sometimes.
We all are. But you step back and you genuinely try to understand the other person's viewpoint. You don't have to agree with it.
Right, that's key.
But just validating their feelings, showing you've heard their concerns, that can instantly de-escalate things. It changes the whole dynamic.
From me versus you.
To us versus the problem.
Yeah,
Yeah, that framing from the source is powerful.
I really like that. And that feeds right into empathy, doesn't it?
It's the direct path. Listening deeply helps you pick up those nuances. Tone of voice, word choice, pacing. It gives you clues about their internal state.
So you can kind of step into their shoes a bit more.
Exactly. See it from their side, respond with more compassion, more understanding.
Okay, and the last big why the material mentioned was problem solving.
Makes sense, right? You can't solve a problem if you don't fully understand it first.
But true.
Active listening is how you gather all the necessary info, hear different angles, maybe identify the real root cause before you jump to conclusions or offer advice that might be totally off base.
Prevents that premature fixing impulse.
Exactly. Know what's broken before you try to fix it.
Okay, so it's clearly foundational. But the material also spends time clarifying what active listening isn't. And I think that's just as important.
Absolutely. Let's bust some myths. First off, it is not just hearing. Hearing is passive, biological. Sound waves hit your ears.
Right. Listening is active.
It's the mental process of making meaning from those sounds, plus all the nonverbal stuff, or, in our case, the vocal cues.
And it's definitely not just waiting for your turn to speak. That's a huge one.
Oh, it's a massive trap. If you're busy in your head crafting your brilliant response while someone else is talking,
You're not listening.
you're not listening to them. You're just queuing up your own thoughts. Big difference.
The material also warns against interrupting like jumping in with advice,
Hmm.
especially unsolicited advice.
Yeah, that often signals, maybe unintentionally, that your need to fix or share is more important than their need to just be heard right then. And it's also not about judging or evaluating what they're saying as they say it. The goal is to understand, not to approve or disapprove on the fly. Requires a non-judgmental stance.
Which could be hard.
Very. And the last isn't. This one stings a bit. It's not pretending to listen.
Oof. The fake nodding, the vacant,
Yeah. The material points out people can usually tell when you're not genuinely engaged, and that lack of authenticity, it's actually more damaging to the connection than just being honest about being distracted.
Okay, so that's what it isn't. Let's flip that. What is active listening, according to the sources?
It is giving your full, undivided attention, consciously silencing distractions, both the internal ones, like your thoughts wandering,
Like grocery lists.
right, and the external ones, like your phone buzzing.
It's about really understanding the message, not just the facts, but the feelings, the intentions underneath.
Yes, the whole package. And it's responding thoughtfully, appropriately, not always solving, but showing you've processed what they said, encouraging them.
Being present, fully
Yeah.
present in that moment with that person.
Right now, focusing entirely on them. It's a conscious, deliberate effort. It's a skill, like any other.
Needs practice.
Needs practice and intention, which naturally leads us to the practical bit.
Yeah.
Okay, how do we actually do this?
Yes, the how-to. This is where the material gets really concrete with techniques. First up, attention and distractions. This feels like ground zero for most of us.
It really is. You've got those internal distractions, your mind drifting off to dinner, or that email you need to send.
Planning your reply.
Yeah. And the external ones, phone, notifications, noise. The key, the material suggests, is conscious awareness. Notice when your mind wanders, gently bring it back. No judgment, just redirect.
And for the external stuff,
Be proactive. Put the phone away. Silence notifications. Close unnecessary tabs. Move to a quieter spot if you can. If you're listening to audio, like you are now, listener, dedicate your ears and your mind. Don't just have it on in the background.
okay. And since we are in an audio format, showing you're listening verbally becomes extra important. The material mentioned minimal encouragers. What are those?
These are just those small verbal signals that show you're tracking along without interrupting. Things like, I see, okay, right, go on.
Little verbal nods?
Exactly. They act like little green lights, encouraging the speaker to continue. Gentle nudges.
And then there's paraphrasing or summarizing. This sounds really powerful.
It is incredibly powerful. You basically restate what you heard the speaker say, but in your own words.
Like a check-in.
Precisely. The material gives examples like, so if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that. And then you summarize their point. Or, okay, so it sounds like the main challenge here is...
And this does two things, right?
Yeah.
Confirms you got it and shows them you were actually processing it.
Exactly. And it gives them a chance to correct you if you misunderstood something. No, actually what I meant was it's invaluable.
Okay, related to that is reflecting feelings, going beyond just the facts.
Yes. This is where empathy really comes in. You acknowledge the emotion you're hearing. The sources suggest phrases like, wow, it sounds like you're feeling really frustrated about that situation.
Or, you seem incredibly excited when you talk about this project.
Right. Or even, I can hear a lot of sadness in your voice when you describe that. It shows you're connecting on an emotional level, not just intellectually.
Then there's asking clarifying questions.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just assume you know what they mean.
Crucial. Don't just nod along if something's unclear or ambiguous. Ask for more detail. The material suggests things like, could you tell me a bit more about that? Or what did you mean exactly when you said it was challenging?
Can you give me an example?
Perfect. These questions show you're genuinely interested in getting it right, in understanding their perspective fully.
Now, obviously we can't see body language here, but the material says we can still observe through audio cues.
Absolutely. You pay attention to the sound of their voice. The tone, is it tight, relaxed, warm, strained? The pacing fast, slow, hesitant, rushed?
Volume changes, pauses.
Yes. Volume can indicate intensity or uncertainty. And pauses. Pauses and silence can be incredibly important. Sometimes the most significant things hang in those quiet moments. Don't feel the need to immediately jump in and fill the silence. Let it breathe.
Give space for the thought or the feeling.
Precisely. What do those cues reveal about the emotion or the importance of what's being said?
Okay, another key how-to was maintaining a non-judgmental stance. putting aside your own biases while listening.
This is tough, but essential. Your role in that moment of listening is to receive their message as they intend it, not to evaluate its validity or compare it to your own views in real time.
Creates a safe space for them.
Exactly. It makes it safer for them to be open and honest.
And finally, the big one, avoid interrupting. Seems simple, but
It's surprisingly hard. We get excited, we want to relate, we think we know where they're going, but you have to consciously hold back. Let them finish their complete thought.
even if it feels like they're rambling a bit.
Even then, within reason. Interrupting, even if you mean well, sends the signal that your input is more important than them finishing their expression. Give them the courtesy of completion.
Okay, so that covers the why, the what it isn't, and the how-to. But let's be realistic. This isn't easy. The material also flags common barriers.
Yeah, and just being aware of them is the first step to overcoming them. We've touched on some already. Distractions are huge, internal and external.
Right. And those preconceived notions or biases,
Yeah.
filtering everything through what we already believe.
That's a big one. Also, planning your response while they're still talking. We said it's what listening isn't, but it's a major barrier because your brain is occupied elsewhere.
Emotional filters, too. If you're angry, stressed, tired,
Yeah.
that colors how you hear things.
Definitely. Or if you feel defensive, it distorts the message, makes you miss details. And just plain old fatigue, being tired, makes it harder to concentrate that deeply.
Or sometimes maybe you're just not that interested in the topic.
That makes it harder for sure. Although, interestingly, the material hints that sometimes committing to the practice of active listening can actually generate interest. You might uncover an angle you didn't expect.
Huh. So you listen in order to become interested sometimes.
Could be. Worth a try, anyway.
Let's circle back quickly to the benefits, but maybe put them in context. Where does this really show up in life?
Okay, yeah. Think about a personal conversation, maybe with a partner, a child, a friend. When you truly listen without jumping in to fix it or share your own story, immediately that feeling of being deeply understood, it's incredibly powerful.
It strengthens the bond.
Massively, you're validating their experience simply by receiving it fully.
And professionally. Like a team meeting.
Imagine a team meeting where everyone is actually practicing this, hearing out ideas fully, understanding concerns before reacting. Decisions would likely be better, made more efficiently, conflicts minimized, innovation could thrive.
It's like the oil in the machine.
It really is. It's a hallmark of effective leadership and just plain functional teams.
And learning environments. You mentioned lectures, documentaries.
Yeah, anywhere you're trying to absorb information. Classrooms, workshops, listening to experts. Active listening lets you go deeper, ask better questions, connect the dots, and actually integrate that new knowledge rather than just letting it wash over you.
Okay, this all paints a really clear picture. So the material we explored, it wraps up with the challenge, right? For you, the listener.
It does, a practical challenge for today. Consciously practice active listening in at least 2 conversations.
2 conversations. Okay, how should someone approach that?
First, choose the conversation strategically. Pick 2 where you feel you can genuinely focus. Could be with family, a friend, a colleague, maybe even a customer service call.
Somewhere you can dedicate a bit of mental energy.
Right. And crucially, don't try to juggle all the techniques at once. That's overwhelming. Focus on just one to start. The material specifically recommends paraphrasing or summarizing.
Okay, so just that one technique.
Just that one. After the other person finishes a significant thought, try restating it in your own words. Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, the main point is, or, so it sounds like you're feeling X because of Y. Just try that.
And while doing that, try to silence that inner voice.
Right.
The one planning the reply.
Yes. Resist formulating your response while they're talking. If your mind wanders, and it will just gently guide it back to their words.
And pay attention to those audio cues we talked about. Tone, pace, pauses. What do they tell you?
Exactly. What's the feeling behind the words? What seems most important based on how they're saying it?
And then afterwards, the material suggests reflecting.
Yes. Take just a minute after each conversation. Ask yourself those reflection questions. How did it feel to really try and listen that way? Did you notice anything new about them or the topic that you might have missed before?
And maybe, how did they react? Especially when you paraphrase. Did they seem surprised, appreciative, annoyed?
Yeah, observe their reaction. It's all data for learning. It's a journey, this skill. It really is. It takes conscious effort. It takes patience.
And wanting to connect, wanting to understand.
That's the core motivator. But the rewards, as the material makes so clear, are huge. Stronger relationships, deeper learning,